Welcome to the official Tennis.com podcast featuring professional coach and community leader, Kamau Murray.
Welcome to the Tennis.com podcast. I'm your host, Kamau Murray, and we are here with the man, the myth, the legend, California boy, surfer dude, running nonprofit, commentator, coach to men and women, world team tennis commentator / narrator. Got to find a way to make it all exciting. Marc Lucero, welcome to the show, brother.
Dude, Kamau, I've been anxiously awaiting the invitation to your show. I've seen it grow, and I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, you know, it's this long list, brother. You know, you have to wait your turn. So you and I met probably 7 years ago in Carson. And I think you were working with Shelby at the time. And I remember that was sort of like my first introduction to girls practicing with girls and like this uneasy, weird, unnecessary, competitive vibe across the net when we're just like having preseason. Tell me a little bit.
Yeah, well, the other thing, which the listeners should know, is that Sloan and Shelby were doing fitness for 2 hours before they saw us. So by the time we got them, they're like tired and hungry and like I would say hangry. And so we get them out there. We're trying to get them to work together. And like one of them or not, maybe both are like spraying balls, and then one's like she's not going to hit the ball right to me. And and both of us are like, we just need to make this hour a good hour. And then we're like, even if you're not feeling good, try to make it good for the other person. And it's understanding what I think what your players are going through at that point in the preseason, and knowing too that we both knew like the practices weren't going to be great, but if they had good attitudes, they could probably get something out of it, and then make it good too for the other person they were trying to practice with. But yeah, never easy when you're doing that practice in that part of the year.
It's kind of like, we just like, neither one of us wants to be here. This is like day 5 of this week. My coach is getting on my nerves. Shane was just in the gym getting on our nerves.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm already over preseason in week 1. That kind of thing. And
they made me drink this gross shake on the way out of there.
Oh yeah, with all these pills. I'm like, what kind of pills are you taking, bro? Like, what are they putting in those shakes? That kind of thing.
Oh my God.
So tell us and the listeners about your introduction into tennis.
Man, it was something that one summer I was with some friends of mine from school, and we played soccer and basketball and the other sports. And one summer I kind of had this thing, like I said, I wanted to play tennis, and a bunch of my friends from school, they all wanted to do the same thing. So we started doing a group clinic once a week together. I think there were my brother and then 3 other friends of mine. So there were 5 of us doing like a group lesson once a week. And, I started liking it, but it wasn't like a great, like high performance thing. It was just something that was fun that I did with my friends. And I gradually started to notice maybe tennis on television. This is like 89. So like Agassi with the long hair was starting to come up, and I kind of just got into it, and we started doing it more and more. And I still kept playing the other team sports, but that was really how I got exposed to it. It was just this group thing once a week that I did with my friends. That was it. And it came from me.
Well, what's funny you say that is about like a lot of people get their introduction to tennis in private lessons. Right. And I think to me, that's one of the reasons, and you work with juniors as well. That's one of the reasons why I think our retention is so low, is because you got one-on-one private lessons standing across the net from a dude that's telling you you're doing everything wrong. Or you can have it where it's like you're with 4 or 5 of your friends and you kind of just fucking around. You know what I mean? It's just like 2 totally different spectrums. And I always encourage people to like find a group of friends. Like if you got a young kid, 6, 7 years old, find a group of friends, make it once a week, and make it more team social to start out. But somehow people still try to make it this, I'm gonna start with private lessons thing, and the kids that are quitting, and you've invested all this money in private lessons already.
Well, it's structured and boring. And what kid likes to do things that are structured and boring? Like kids want to, kids try soccer, basketball, football, whatever. Like at school with their friends at lunch or something, or like in a park, and then they decide they like it. And then, maybe they get to a point where they start getting some instruction, but it's just something that they do, spontaneously and organically. And in tennis, yeah, you're right. Like tennis is, it's just such a like arcane way of introducing the game to kids. And yeah, like I agree with you 100%. That's a great point that I actually never really thought of.
Yeah, dude, it's boring. I'm gonna stand for an hour. He gonna tell me everything I'm doing is wrong. I'm holding the racket wrong. My feet are wrong. My toss is wrong. I can't toss the ball perfectly on the serve because I can't use my non-dominant hand. The whole process is just sort of crazy. And the
kids just want to hit
there,
balls. Like the kids have to stand there, and like standing's boring. Hitting balls is fun. Hit 2 balls, go to the back of the line. Like that sucks.
Yeah. So you're a California boy, and you got obviously good enough to go play at USC. Right?
No, I played at Boston College.
Oh, BC.
Yeah, BC. Yeah.
So, same colors. So it's
you're right. Yeah.
So tell me, what sort of clicked for you? Because I messed around with the game when I was 7 and probably hated it till I was 12. Right? So what sort of clicked with you? What kept you going? Because you and I both know boys in this tennis quit sooner than girls, right?
Yeah.
Without like a push or something to like keep you away from basketball when you're like 14 and you're trying to decide tennis or basketball, right? What kept you going? Was it a crazy parent? Was it just like a cute girl? What was it?
I liked being able to touch the ball all the time. I liked being the one who was taking all the swings. I played soccer like pretty seriously through 8th grade. And I played my freshman year in high school, but that was kind of a fluke. My mom told me years later, like, so I had stopped playing like organized soccer, like club soccer in 8th grade. I was kind of done with it. And I was going to go towards tennis. And I ended up playing soccer for my school in high school for my freshman year because I wanted to try out, it was a way to like meet other people at school. And I still wanted to play. And my mom told me years later that my dad only let me try out because he didn't think I was going to make the team because I was done, because I had already stopped playing. I was the only kid who made the soccer team in high school who wasn't playing club soccer anymore. So I ended up playing club soccer, and it just became too much because I just fell in love with tennis, and I was really into it. And I liked being the only one out there. And I've always been kind of like a more of a lone wolf guy than like a group guy, and that was just what I really liked. And I really liked the way it tested me and the way that it kind of challenged me at a young age. I was really into that.
Now, tell me about the decision to go to Boston College, because I grew up in a cold weather state and went to Florida, right? Went south to go to college, right? And you went north, right, to play all indoor tennis. Tell me about what college options did you have and why'd you end up choosing BC?
Yeah, it was kind of the thing, almost similar to you. Like, I think you always want to try out what you haven't done before or what's new or what's different. And for me, I knew that I wanted to be in the Northeast. I looked at a few schools in California, like some in Southern California, like a USC, like a Loyola Marymount. Those were schools that kind of came down to the end with me. And then I looked at some schools in the Northeast, like starting like in DC on the way up. And there was just something when I visited Boston College, I really liked it. And I had a buddy who was there, who was from San Diego, a year older than me, who was playing on the team. And so we had kind of spoken, and he was like, yeah, it's cool. And I had seen them when they came out to the West Coast, and it just felt like it was going to be an adventure of mine. And then that if I didn't like it, I could always, transfer to something more familiar. But I wanted to give that Northeast a shot. And it was a similar profile to like the high school that I had gone to. And I ended up really being happy with my decision.
So you obviously never played on the tour, right? Or perhaps maybe tried the tour, but obviously
played some futures. The writing was on the wall. Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly, right. You like start playing some 17-year-old who like doesn't go to school and like can ball, right? You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do something else. But you somehow found your way to the top tier of the sport, right? Not even just one way to sport. But tell me how you transition from playing at BC, right? Maybe not having like that sort of, top 10 in the world pedigree like Lindsay or somebody like that, but find yourself coaching like great professionals, bona fide professionals. Tell me how that process goes.
Yeah, I was very academic. And I think, I know with your background, like you're obviously someone who is very academic as well. I think that eventually I made my way from school and then playing briefly. And then I was in law school. And then I got out of law school and I needed something to bide my time until I figured out really what I wanted to do. Like, what's the easiest thing you can do with someone like us? Like, oh man, I can coach and like make a little money and just chill and figure out what I really want to do. And then I decided that I found that I really loved what I was doing. And then, you know, one thing leads to another and you get out some opportunities. And I think what I've done has been able to sort of apply that academic side with the experiences that I've had in tennis. And then the psychological side that's obviously needed to work with, I think we'll work with any athletes, not just, you know, high level ones, but of all athletes. I think it's taking the academic approach and applying it to tennis, because I think people maybe sometimes don't think that coaching is that involved, but obviously, you know, that it's very involved. But it's taking that academic approach, applying it to tennis, and I think that's sort of, you know, enabled me to, you know, to give my best shot and to give my best to my players that I've been able to work with.
So what are the chances that you're the only coach on tour with a law degree?
Well, I quit after the first year of law school. I was like, this is not for me, but I don't think there's too many that have gone into law school. I don't think there are too many that took first year you know, civil procedure like I did.
So your first job sort of in pro coaching, did you start as a hitting partner? Did you start right in as coaching? How did you sort of make that transition? Because I always find it really interesting. Like, we'll be at tournaments, we'll be at slams, and all of a sudden we see a new face, right? Because it is like a really tight club. I mean, this is like, you want to talk about the good old boys club? This is like the good old boys club. And then you see a new face appear, and I always can't help but think, how did they make their way onto that team, right? Or whose college roommate was he or she, right? Or whose niece is that? You know what I mean? Like, how did they find their way into that camp? So how did you find your way on the tour?
You know, my first job coaching a player was, I worked at Princeton for a few years. I left Princeton and I sort of started to reach out to pretty much everybody I knew that I wanted to work on an individual level with somebody. I wanted to work one-on-one. And ideally for me, I thought would be like, you know, a lower ranked pro player. I eventually got an opportunity with someone who was ranked like 500 in the world. And so I did some weeks with her. And then it was through that I eventually got a job with the USTA in Carson. And I was low man in the totem pole. So yes, I would be hitting with whichever pros were coming into town. I would be hitting with them. And, you know, the veteran coaches would be the ones who are, you know, running the practices. And I'm out there hitting with whatever pros there, and I'm soaking everything up. And over the course of a few years with the USTA, I think I met enough people and met enough players that eventually, when I was done with the USTA, I got an opportunity to work with Jeannie Bouchard. And she was 18 at the time. She just won Junior Wimbledon. And that was basically, she was the first person that I worked with on the main tour. And I was that fresh face that people were like, where'd this dude come from? You know, like, like, where'd this dude come from? I was like, you know, it was like this huge thing for me. I was like breaking out in hives because of the anxiety and stress I was feeling, because this is new job. I'm like worried about getting fired every week. And
you got pressure working with Jeannie, right? And the pressure working with a big name.
Yeah. She's a highly touted prospect. Everyone's like, man, like, you know, like, who are you? Like, blah, blah, blah. And everyone knew her, you know, because of her, you know, her background and her results. And yeah, it was this totally unique experience for me.
Now, we see a lot of people sort of have, you know, nice, good, secure coaching job, national coaching jobs with USTA. And at one point or another, they like, you know, develop a bond with a player, leave and go full time, right? And I always think that's a courageous move, because you and I both know that there is no security in coaching professional tennis players. Like, every year they just might want to change just for the sake of changing, right? What gave you the courage, right, when you were like thinking about making a leap from the USTA to sort of private individual coaching? You know, what was the thought process? I always like, looking back on it, if I had to tell somebody, I'd say keep your USTA job, right? You know what I mean? It's secure, you got benefits. But what sort of gave you what was your thought process in making that jump?
Yeah, you know, at the time, the USTA was going through a real, as the USTA does every so often, like a real like reversing of courses. and a cleaning out of personnel, and they had some financial hardships, and this was right after the market had crashed around 2009, 2010, and things were starting to sort of normalize again. The USGA, they laid off a ton of people, like myself, like Lori McNeil. That was a whole group that got cleared out of Carson. So that was a real push that actually turned out to be really good for me, because that ended up giving me a bunch of opportunities to work privately and to work individually, which I had kind of known I want to move that direction. Because when you go, the plus side to leaving that security is there's a lot more upside in terms of there's financial upside, because as a national coach, you're getting paid your salary regardless of the player wins or loses. Sometimes you like that, because if the player is losing a lot, that bank account could take a hit. But there's if you have someone who's doing well, or if you have someone who thinks they can do well, there's a real you want to roll the dice and try to ride that player and make some money. Also, making your own schedule, having the freedom to travel more. If maybe the federation might want you to stay home, being able to fully devote yourself to that player and really invest your mind, body, and spirit, which we all obviously end up doing. You just have a little more freedom, and it actually ended up being a great thing for me that I went through that with USGA, and then I ended up getting all these opportunities that probably might not have happened.
So you talked about being a sponge, right, and being a national USGA coach, but having a chance to be on a court with coaches. I know some of those coaches. I've never worked for the USGA, but I've spent a lot of time in Carson alongside, some of those guys. Who was the best strategist of that group of guys that we know work USGA, or just
Roger Smith. I thought Roger tactically was very good, and just being around him and sort of listening to him break down players. I thought tactically he was very good. I would say, to be honest, Lori McNeil, listening to her talk about playing people with good forehands and only slice on the backhand. There was one girl that was giving this girl that I used to coach all kinds of problems. And Lori was, telling me, when I played Steffi, I played this, such and such way, because she actually wanted you to do, to attack this part of the court instead of that part. And I'm like, God, you're right. I was telling this player to play one way because that's the way I think I would have played a person like that. And then Lori is telling me to flip it because this is what worked against Steffi. And I'm like, there aren't many places you can go to that you hear that. You know what I mean? Your local club not having some coach there who, put a beat down on Steffi because she played her a certain way. So, but yeah, people like Roger and Lori, and then, being around someone like a Tom Gullickson talking about, the way he would relate to players during Davis Cup and what they needed to hear during competition, that stuff. For me as a young coach trying to learn my way and get better, and it was invaluable. It was an incredible experience for me.
So who was the best technician?
I think I really like David Roditi, the way he broke down strokes for young kids. For me, that really made a lot of sense. I saw Ray Ruffles teach the backhand slice, which it still is a way that I would teach someone who doesn't know how to hit a slice. I think those two really stood out. Particularly Ray with the slice was it was like a proper old school Aussie slice.
Oh yeah, those Aussies famous for that chip. That good old Renee Stubbs, Ash Barty.
Yeah.
That chip.
Yeah.
So you go on and you have a chance to coach Shelby Rogers, who always one of the best Americans, always capable of some great wins, right? Always super professional as well, right? And then you go on to coach Stevie Johnson. What do you think the difference is? People always say to me, because I've only coached girls at the tour level, right? And I say, "Oh, would you ever coach a man?" I'm like, "Yeah, I coach a man." I say it's way harder, right? But coaching girls also has its challenges. What would you say is the biggest difference between coaching women and coaching?
Tactically, I think you sort of have to understand the nuances, and there are certain plays that work on the women's tour that don't work out on the men's, and I think vice versa. I think in the men's, you have to be aware if you like in the women's, a lot of times, if you get the ball off the court, you're in a pretty good position. right? Like like with the women, a lot of times their problem is they play too much through the court and they wonder why the other person's like starting to hit the ball well, with the guys, if you get the ball going off the court, and you're all of a sudden really vulnerable because you've opened up a bunch of angles, and these guys can move so well and they can shape the ball so much that like often you want to keep the ball through the court because the angle you're getting back is it's a much more narrow angle. So just understanding tactics, I think also like in the guys, you're going to lose a lot more matches when your player played pretty well, just because they couldn't convert the 2 break points they had. Right. With the women's, I think you can plan on your tactics being pretty effective on nearly every point of the match because there's so many fewer points that are ended with just after a serve. And right. I actually really liked working on the women's side for that sense, because I knew that if my tactics were good, like probably going to get a W today, regardless of who you're playing. With the guys, like, our tactics can be great, but
if the ball changes the back
fence every time,
Right. Yeah, I always feel that on the women's game, you have the points develop, right? You spend a lot more points within like the 5 to 8 range, right? You can kind of like develop the point. I feel like even with the on-court coaching, there's a lot more opportunity for coaches to have an impact on the match.
Yes.
Because of tactics and, exploiting people's movement, right? And on the guy side, you always felt like there was very little margin of error. And if the guy was serving big and you didn't convert on 1 or 2 break points, and he does convert on 1 or 2 break points, even having played your best match, you're done.
Yeah.
And so, just like you talked about, like in general, one of the biggest differences, if you get a woman moving, right, out to those wings, you pretty much got her hurt, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Get a guy moving out there and you make it like overly athletic, and you also open up yourself to have to be athletic, right? And sort of like defend the angle. So I always thought that was like one of the biggest differences, but also why, I sort of enjoy coaching the girls, because I felt like if I got it right the night before tactically, we would have a chance to win, right? You know what I mean?
100%.
Versus
yeah.
You play Big John Isner, it's like, bro, just, step back 8 feet, try to like guess a couple times on the surface and get
start guessing. 100%. One of the things from the women's the game that I thought was really, that's really effective and we're seeing more and more is, guys who can hit the back end up the line. I think you see that. Like, I thought it was something that I tried to get, Shelby to do a lot, was hit her back end up the line early. And that was something that I sort of came over here and it was telling Steve last year earlier, even before the pandemic, like, hey, once in a while, we just got to hit the back end up the line once in a while. Like either if it's slice or coming over it, whatever, but just hit the ball up the line because you get the guy, away from that place they want to be, like that ad corner where they're pumping forehands. It's something Novak does so well. It's something like some of these top guys like really do well, and it really hurts people.
Did you just ask Steve Johnson to come over the backhand?
Dude, yeah, you got to once in a while,
1 out of 10.
yeah, that's a good ratio. I'm happy with that. I'm good. But just once in a while, once in a while.
So I think like as coaches, you have like some most memorable matches, good or bad. One where you like, man, this was a great match. It was great to be a part of this match and come out on top. And you also have those matches where you just slowly saw your bonus evaporate. Since you've had the chance to coach numerous players, can you give me like most memorable matches of each player, positive or negative? I'll give you some in exchange.
I don't know about you, but sometimes I've found myself so in the moment where it's been really hard to enjoy the good ones. You've had some incredible rides. The US Open run, obviously. Just before I answer your question, did you enjoy that, or were you like so in it and stressed and planning for the next one, like after the current win, planning for the next one, like that you couldn't enjoy it, or did you enjoy it?
No, I didn't enjoy it. Because I think what happens is in the process of getting it right, which is hard to do. It's hard to get it right for 2 weeks, right? From the right practice partner, the right practice time, the right set of tactics, the right draw, the right meals, all types of stuff, right? In the process of getting it right, it becomes very stressful, right? And then the closer you get, because as a coach, you can impact a lot of the matches on the women's tour, you're so stressed out so you don't f it up, right?
yeah. Not even trying to win, just trying to not f it up.
It's like you got a great player with great talent and a workable draw. How do you not say the one, because one wrong tactic, you get up, right? So I didn't enjoy it because I was so locked in, right? I remember after every match, every win, honestly, coming home or coming to the hotel room and like sitting under the shower, like sitting on the floor. We were staying at the London Hotel, right? Sitting on the floor of the shower with the water just running over me, like emotionally exhausted.
Yeah.
Right?
Phone blowing up and you can't even look at it, right?
Yeah. You know what I mean? Just emotionally exhausted. And then you find yourself trying to get ready for the next match, right? Trying to see who won, who's the next match, what happened, what were the stats, what the thing. So I was emotionally exhausted. And I think that my biggest regret is because I was so locked in. I didn't, number one, enjoy it. Number two, I didn't allow or didn't allow others around me to also enjoy it, right? You know, like people who have helped me in my career, unrelated to me being a pro coach, but whether it's people in Chicago or my family members or whatever, I didn't want them to come to New York because I didn't want them to fuck it up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I found myself missing an opportunity to bring others on this ride, right? That you may not ever ride again. You know what I'm saying? Get to ride on it.
Yeah.
So I definitely, I missed an opportunity to enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
that would
100%.
be my advice to other good coaches is to find a way to do the work without messing it up, right? Or enjoy it without messing it up, whether it's a good dinner or, you know, having people come in and experience it or, whatever it is, right? Because you don't want anybody coming in and messing up the routine, messing up the vibe at dinner, all that other stuff, or even distracting you, where now you have to give your energy to somebody else when you've got this rare opportunity with a workable draw, a healthy athlete, an athlete that's in a great emotional space, like sort of everything sort of working. And so, no, it was actually hard to enjoy.
I believe it. 2016, like Shelby was the last person in the French. She was ranked 108 and she made, this run into the quarters and, and I didn't probably enjoy a minute of it. Like maybe one round that was an easy match with whoever she played Vesnina in the second round. That was like maybe the only easy match. But the whole time, like it was emotionally exhausting for me. And like same thing, like after every match, like the phone's blowing up, can't even look at it, just want to throw it. I can't like bear to be near it. Like I'm in the hotel, like, crushing video for the next match, like don't want to talk to anybody. And then all I can remember from the whole thing is Muguruza hit a second serve on break point to the tee, which I knew was going to happen. And it was a service winner. And like, that's literally the only thing I remember, like that I remember clearly from that, like 2 weeks in Paris, other than obviously like, when Shelby won the fourth round and was talking to Bartoli on court and was saying how she didn't believe, she wasn't sure if she ever believed that she could do something like that. And that part was like incredible to see, when you see someone who's achieved something that they didn't think they could do, like it is amazing. But for my point of view, like, I remember that one specific point in the quarterfinals, like, which would have been to go up 5-4 and serve for the first set to go into the semis, but
now, let me ask you, were you thinking, I definitely told you the serve was going to go there? Or were you thinking, damn, I should have told her that the serve was going to go there in that situation?
I'll tell you offline what I was thinking in that moment. But no, you see the opportunities when they come up, and it's very easy when you're sitting off the court in our chair. It's very easy to see those opportunities for what they are. I think it's much more difficult when you're on the court out there playing and thinking of so many different things. It's much more difficult, I think, to recognize them. But it's very easy from our seat to see what to do and to know, when these things are coming up. And that's the one thing that it gets very difficult. And I always try to remember how, no one's out there trying to mess it up,
Right. Everybody's out there doing their best.
Yeah.
So Stevie's also been a part of some great matches. Can you give me one most memorable match, win or lose with Stevie?
Yeah, this year, he's had a couple matches. He had a couple matches last year with Jack Sock. They were just crazy matches with the way those guys are playing. But this year in the second round of the French, he was playing a Brazilian guy, Thiago Monteiro, who is rough on clay, lefty. The guy, he returned serve on the tarp near the fence. And Steve was playing him, and Steve was losing to this guy. I think Steve was down 2 sets. Maybe the first round he was down 2 sets with Francis. Maybe he was always down a set in this match with Montero, and he was playing him when they had the curfew at 9 p.m. For COVID, because COVID stops at 9 p.m. So
right.
So the curfew, so all the fans gonna leave. So it ended up being him playing this Brazilian guy in a 5-set match, on court 15 and the way back in Paris, on the other side of Suzanne Longland. And I'm there. The other dudes, 2 coaches are there. Maybe someone from the USGA is watching. Kathy Rinaldi and David Nick, and I think were behind me. And Steve Weissman from Tennis Channel. And this match was funny for a few different reasons. One early in the match, it was Carlos Ramos, who is famous for calling the coaching violation on Serena at the US Open. And so in the second set, this guy gives the Brazilian Monteiro a soft warning for coaching. He says, tell your coach to stop coaching. And my guy, Steve, as he does, inserts himself in there. And he's like, wait, coaching? Soft warning? And the guy's like, yeah, I gave him a soft warning. And Steve's like, well, is it coaching or is it not coaching? And and Pascal's like, well, I'm just telling him, no more coaching. And Steve's like, so my coach should get 1 free coaching. And he yells over, he's like, hey, Mark, you get one free one. And then the guy's like, he's like, no. And in my mind, I'm like, this guy is totally gun shy because he's, after he got, his hand slapped. But so that happened. And then, Steve ended up coming back and winning this match 6-0 in the 5th, which was crazy. It was a crazy win. And, Steve Weissman's yelling big first serve, in this empty stadium to Steve, first serve, big serve here. And after the match, Steve was like, what do you think, this guy, I was planning on missing my first serves and hitting only second serves to win. It was just, it was a good one. And to see a guy who has, I like when you break someone's spirit and when you win that 3rd set or 5th set, 6-0, that to me is one of the best things in tennis. So I was really happy after that one. Very happy.
That's rough. Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah.
That's classic Steve.
Out of there.
That's classic Steve to be able to talk and narrate and joke and draw you out of a match and act like he doesn't care. And then he ended up just ripping you apart. I remember last year, team tennis, we're playing team tennis, right? I mean, look, it's not the French Open final, but it's still, right? And he's sitting there, he's talking to Brandon Nakashima. Hey, Brandon, I was out last night, too late. And, I'm not really feeling good. And I'm like, Brandon, don't look at that dude. He's full of shit. He's just trying to talk you out of your game. Trust me, 5-0. I'm like, Brandon, I still got something right. And it is the same thing this year to Tommy. And Donald's like, look, we're in number 1. You guys don't have a shot to win. And he's talking with his obnoxious beard, mustache, whatever. And it was like, guys, don't talk to that dude, right? Yeah. And then he just starts
nobody
to
plays possum like him. Yeah.
Oh my God. So you also commentate, right? And I've, over the past 18 months had an opportunity to do the same thing. How did you transition from that? Obviously, I think your pedigree, right, allows you to sort of be able to articulate the game. Your experience coaching people of different level allows you to sort of dumb it down to a point that makes it easy to listen to on TV. How did you get into commentating? I know the moment that sort of led me to it, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah, I just always was into it a little bit just because of what you said. I felt like I could sort of narrate or, articulate what was happening on the court. And randomly a few years ago at Wimbledon, I was coming off the practice court and I got a call from, I can't remember who called, maybe someone called me and said, hey, the world feed at Wimbledon is looking for another commentator, someone that knows the American players, you know, could you fill in? And so, you know, I was like, okay, I don't have anything better to do today. Sure, I can, you know. So I went and like I did like an on-camera hit with this dude from, you know, the world feed, which hadn't planned on doing. And then I ended up calling a match, which was actually Stevie was playing Nicholas Kicker, I think on court 12 at Wimbledon, like on the way back. And it was my first, you know, it's the first time I'd ever done it. And it was, you know, it was fun. I had the producer in my ear, like, you know, talking about, it's funny listening to the producers, man. Like they think tennis is so easy. Like, you know, like someone misses like a running backhand pass and the producer's in my ears like, man, he really made a mess out of that one. I'm like, like it's a running backhand pass on grass. Like it's not easy, you know, I'm thinking that like, the whole time, but yeah, so that was the first time I did it. And then I eventually listened to myself back and I thought it was terrible. And, but I sought out more opportunities to try to grow it. And then I just tried to make some more contacts throughout the game and look for opportunities to do it, which, you know, World Team Tennis gave me. And then I've had another couple opportunities with world feeds for different Grand Slams. And it's been fun. It's been fun trying to get better. And like same way that you would approach tennis or anything else, like, you know, which I'm sure you like feel the same way. It's about getting good reps and then getting good feedback and trying to implement it. And I've had a good time because the best thing is, doesn't matter who wins or loses as long as the match is quick.
I know, right? Exactly. You're like, all right, as soon as it's over, I get to go home. So exactly. I hate to say that. Ooh, that sounded so bad. But I remember I got into the company. I was in Charleston at a tournament and we were at like, you know, the player dinner, sponsor dinner, whatever. And Bob Wiley was there. And I remember giving him some critique or feedback, right, on Tennis Channel and all this other stuff. And then he was like, well, why don't you try it? You know, that kind of thing. That's sort of how I got into it. So I owe credit to Bob for like, you know, making me put my money where my mouth is and sort of step behind the camera and see if I can actually do it. But I do find that it has helped. If you're not coaching, it does keep your skills sharp.
100%.
Yeah, it does like help you look at players you normally wouldn't, right?
Yes.
As a coach, you sort of, once your player gets top 25, you sort of keep tabs on top 25. And then you end up having to play somebody that's like 90 in the world in first round and they actually can play. You're like, oh shit, I've actually never watched this girl. You know what I mean? So it sort of helps you expand sort of your familiarity with players throughout. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And because you're talking about what's happening, I find that I can identify tactics much more clearly and much more quickly by talking through what's happening every point than I can if I'm just watching video of some player that, you know, we're going to play tomorrow and I know I'm going to watch 2 hours of video. Like I can watch that in a very passive way, but watching a match actively because I'm, you know, talking about, you know, player X or whatever, I find myself with a much deeper understanding of how they play and of why they're doing what they're doing. You know, after calling a match, I find that pretty amazing actually. I didn't think it was going to be that way.
Especially if you're the analyst and somebody else is like the color, right?
Yeah.
Or the sort of the, you know, what do they call it?
Yeah, the play-by-play, yeah.
Play-by-play, and you're the analyst, then you actually get the chance to educate and sort of have like a two-way sort of dialogue. It does keep your man sharp. So one of the things a lot of people don't know about you is also, you know, like myself, you got a foundation, you work with a bunch of kids. Tell me about the impetus behind First Break, right? And all the stuff you do with the kids in California.
Yeah, it's just, it's been something that we have done because tennis has taken our lives. And like, so myself and a couple other people, we started this thing. And tennis has just taken us to incredible places and given us incredible opportunities. And, you know, like I've been able to see places in the world or, you know, have these experiences that I don't know if I would have had otherwise. And I want to pass that on to other people, or I want to like open those doors potentially for other people. And, you know, we are here in the Carson community. We serve kids, you know, mostly from Carson, Compton, Gardenia, and the surrounding areas. And we want to provide access to tennis. We want to help them, you know, with the education. We have a full-time tutor here who, you know, does the educational component of our program. But, you know, we obviously like the studies are, you know, there are endless, like, you know, kids who do sports, like stay in school longer, kids who do sports, stay in school and have better grades longer. For us, like, if we can help these kids, you know, maybe this kid gets a chance to get into a private high school. Maybe this person is the first in their family to go to college, you know, et cetera, et cetera. These are things that can change the course of generations and families. And we want to change lives. And there have been some people who do it really well, like you guys, like College Park. There are a couple programs out there that we see as kind of the North Stars for what we're trying to do, and we aspire to to be like programs like that, where kids end up becoming, if they want, like really good players, really good students, and we want to know that we've again helped change people's lives and made them champions off the court.
Cool. All right, so my last two questions: favorite tournament and worst tournament.
Worst tournament. Worst tournament, that's easy. That'd be Wuhan for me. I never liked going there. When they changed the hotel, it actually got better. But the old hotel, like in the middle of the city, was horrendous. Like I hated going there. It's like an hour bus ride in the beat up bus, like to the courts. I thought it was terrible. Best tournament for me, I love Indian Wells just because of the setup there. One thing I don't like about Indian Wells is being from Southern California, especially people that knew me as a kid, like I'll be on a practice court, with whatever player, like working, and like someone will yell across the court. Some fan was walking by, like, "Hey, Mark, like, what's up?" And it's not a cool look. It's not a good look. But Indian Wells, and I would say Charleston.
All right, so my least favorite place I never have to go again, hopefully, Nuremberg.
I've never been. Is it bad?
Yeah, it's just it's just and then favorite, I would definitely say French Open.
Yeah, the French is my favorite slam for sure. Yeah, that's
French
definitely up there. Have you been to Strasbourg?
I have been to Strasbourg.
That's one of my favorites too. I love Strasbourg. Really? Yeah, I love it.
It's not near my top. It's kind of down there with Nuremberg. I mean, it's like it's like.
I love the town. I love the town. The hotel's decent. I don't know. I really like that tournament. I'm trying to think. There's got to be one bad tournament that I'm forgetting.
You don't feel like Strasbourg, you just counting the days to French Open? I mean, it's like there's still a filler week to French Open. You don't feel like that? I feel like
no, I love it. No, I love it there because I feel like I know the town pretty well. Like I don't know. There's good food in my opinion. There's definitely places that are fillers. Like I think some of the grass weeks are not great. Like prior to Wimbledon,
Filler.
There's some fillers there. The U.S. Open series pretty good. I'm post U.S. Open, not great. Like in my mind, I don't like any of the China tournaments.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, lucky this year we won't be going. So
good riddance.
You bring up the China tournament. What is your take on the Peng Shuai situation, and B, is this an opportunity for the tour to add tournaments back in the States where there's more marketing, more TV time, probably get more players, right? Just to actually want to play as opposed to looking at it like I'm just here so I don't get fined kind of thing? What is your whole take on the situation?
Yeah, well, I mean, China, obviously, I think I stand for human rights and democracy. Even though China's not a democracy, I stand for human rights. And so, I think it was a no-brainer what the WTA did. The question for me was, were they going to have the guts to do it? And Steve did. The ATP, I think, needs to follow suit. I think the Olympics, for them to go there now, I think is unconscionable. I think they're going to do it because, they're pretending they had the calls with her. So, whatever. But yeah, it's an opportunity to rebuild that part of the schedule. And I've just never thought that the fall makes sense because you have this crescendo in September, the US Open, there's so much media attention. It's in New York, especially this year, you had these incredible matches. And then all of a sudden the tour goes dark because matches, for the US media, matches are happening in the middle of the night in Asia. And it's tennis is still playing. What's going on? I think there's a better way to capitalize on that, on all that media attention and interest than the way the calendar is currently composed. So yeah, I would love to see some tournaments back in the US. You'd see, people want to play. Players will go where there's tournaments. And so I think you'll have people playing. San Diego was a new event this year for us. It was incredible. It was sold out, I think, from qualies through the finals. I know, Chicago, people raved about, the events you had there. I think it's a real opportunity to capitalize. And, we talk about not being able to build stars. play where the media is and you'll build some stars, you know, not in the middle of the night in Asia against, you know, with nobody in the stands. Like, that's terrible.
Well, brother, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. Always fun. I know I was with you at team tennis. I appreciate the position you in. You got to make everything exciting.
Oh man, whenever your team played, I knew we were going to have an exciting match, and I just wish we had you mic'd up during the match more.
Oh, no, let me tell you, I might not have a job if I was mic'd up during the match more. You know, my conversation is not for TV. You know that.
That's why I wanted the mic on you. I know. I know.
Especially with 3 matches that we lose on the last point.
Oh man, that beginning first week for you guys was brutal.
Well, we went from almost last to we should have been first. I mean, we could have been number 1 in the league had 2 or 3 of those gone our way. But, you know, that's just sort of how it goes. But it was always fun. It was good to have. Like, that was my first time being on the court with TP, my first time being on the court with Donald. And
hey, Donald has the best overhead in tennis, I think.
You know, it's funny you say that. Me and Sloan were like, man, where do you get that overhead from? You never hear somebody talk about how good a professional's overhead is because you take it for granted. But people don't know. That's hard. Like, you could blow an overhead, right? And that boy has the best overhead from anywhere in the court in the history of this guy. I mean, he'd be on the baseline. Cracking overhead. It's amazing.
It's automatic. Automatic. Hey, Stevie said it at some tournament this year, and I thought he was full of shit, you know. And then I started watching, I started paying attention over the course of the year, and then all team tennis, and like, Donald is just out of this world.
Dude, Stevie was playing him, and Stevie like put up a lob. You know, Stevie like an obnoxious lob, right, out of the stadium that bounces in, and then Donald cracks the overhead winner from the baseline. And Stevie said, "Yeah, I mean, whatever. Everybody knows he's got the best overhead since he was 14." You know what I mean? It was like, it was like I mean, that dude, you are right, the best overhead. But it was a good 2 weeks, and you don't want me mic'd up. You want the
you
league.
need to have Nick in the mixed doubles, man.
Oh, yeah, no, I think we were good with Donald in the mixed doubles. I love him, but look, you can't on one hand say Donald Young got the best overhead, then say I got to sub him out for Nick Monroe. I mean, come on, that's no matter what happened, Donald Young was number 1 in the world, and aside from the overhead, he does have some of the best hands in the history of the game.
Yeah,
bar none. That boy has some of the most gifted hands in the history of the game. So, you know, with those 2 things, overhead and the hands, you got to play them in mix.
You had a fun team to watch. I really liked watching the Chicago matches. That was a good time.
It was fun watching us lose all those sudden death matches. And then the bad part about Palm Springs is the bar was closed by the time we lost. So I couldn't go drink. I couldn't go drink away the pain. I just had to go sit in my room and, you know, eat some In-N-Out burger. And
Sometimes that's just as good after that loss. Sometimes that burger is just as good.
Oh man. Well, man, I appreciate you for taking the time to be with us. Always good to catch up with you, and we'll get a chance to talk to you soon.
All right, bud. Thanks for having me. It's a good time, Kamau.
All right, thanks, brother.